Sponsored by Taylor Freelance, Rainier Ballistics, Hodgson Powders, and JPL Precision.
Hi, welcome to Power Factor. I'm Larry, and I'm glad to be back. It's been a long time, it seems, probably since our, anniversary episode, and then our Limited 10 episode, which has been, in terms of calendar, I think it's been a few months since I've been in front of the camera here. So it's definitely good to be back. Good to be talking to you again about Carry Optics Division, USPSA. So I've taken quite a lot of time off this past winter and even late fall. I had a match back in October, and then November got pretty crazy with work and with family vacation, and then my son's birthday, and then Christmas, and then New Year's, and then et cetera, and I wasn't shooting much during the wintertime. I did shoot one Classifier match in January in USPSA, and then not much else until just very recently here in March. So I'm going to talk about Carry Optics in general, just kind of rules updates and equipment, gear updates, and then run some videos by you, and that'll be the content of this episode. So first of all, the board of directors met. The USPSA Board of Directors met in late January to discuss Carry Optics as planned, and thankfully they've expanded the rules a little bit, which I've got some notes taken here, and let's run down some of the new expanded rules for Carry Optics. So now they have authorized Carry Optics for any level of USPSA match. So a level, it was previously only when it was initially created as a provisional division, it was only for level 1 matches. Well, and in that time, they had scheduled a Carry Optics Nationals, which is coming up, I think, this August 2016. And so we were pretty sure that at some point they were going to open it up to bigger matches. So level 1 matches are your local club matches. Level 2 matches are more like sectional matches, regional matches of multiple counties. If you've got a lot of clubs in your area, it might be the whole state for your region if you're in a more sparsely populated area or a very small state. And then of course the level 3 matches are multi-state championships and national championships. So now Carry Optics is authorized for any level of USPSA match. So that's good. They've expanded the amount of stippling and contouring and texturing of the grip that is allowed, and that also includes grip reductions and undercut trigger guards. So this is getting into some of my very early initial hopes for this division, which would be to include all this stippling and modifications of grips and things that people, the tactical guys, are already doing, and we want them to be able to use those guns in our sport. So previously you were only allowed to do things that were legal for production division, and which is stippling only in the grip area, which we've shown you, and I've done that to be production legal should I want to keep this gun production legal. There's the other side of the grip there, and you can see this is, if you're a production shooter, this is as much as you can stipple. Front strap, back strap, of course, but only up to here, nothing forward on the frame. So now this new ruling allows undercutting of trigger guards, grip reductions, and things like that. So just today I did a little undercut trigger guard, buzzed that up a little bit higher with a sanding drum from a Dremel tool, made this arch a little bit higher than stock, and then rounded it off in a U shape like this, and then also smoothed off and rounded off the bottom of my trigger guard to get just a little higher grip with my shooting hand. And to avoid the Glock knuckle, which is these hard square corners on the underside of the trigger guard, which kind of create calluses and grind into your hands and stuff. So now this gun is very smooth and feels very good in the hand. And so since we're allowed to do that now, today I had some time actually to go ahead and take that on, and it only took me, you know, I don't know, an hour of sculpting it with a sanding drum and then going through with various levels of sandpaper, starting with 600 and all the way up to over 1,000. So get it nice and smooth. It's not quite as highly polished as my Glock 35 limited gun. Feels really good though. It's nice and smooth. So that's something new that you're allowed to do. As far as stippling the frame way up here, I don't really see a need for that. I personally, I don't think it affects the way I don't think it would affect the way I shoot, but you are allowed to do it if you like. Another new rule, expanded slide profiles to include serrations and cosmetic cuts that do not go completely through the slide. So again, this is another thing that initially, if you go way back to our episode called Production Optics, before this was ever announced, this was just, there was some buzz that people were talking about maybe this will happen, and I put out there, here's what I would like to see if they do this. And it's taken them until now to allow basically aftermarket slides that already have serrations cut into them, that have the company logo cut into it. That's the cosmetic cuts and things like that. And even some of the really fancy looking ZevTech Glockworks slides, which do not have holes all the way through them. They didn't want to allow slide lightening, to lighten the slide up by cutting holes completely through, but shallow textured cuts or just cosmetic cuts are fine. Again, if you look at Glockworks or ZevTech, they're like trilobite slide, if you know what that is, look it up. It's got just the whole thing's covered in serrations essentially, with kind of ball cut serrations, but none of the serrations penetrate fully through the slide, so that would be legal now for carry optics. So that's good. That's a very good thing. We kind of, again, you know, you got people buying these aftermarket slides before they know about the game, and then they find out about the game, and until now that gun or that slide would not have been legal. So thankfully it is now. They've also increased the weight limit. So initially they had a weight limit of 35 ounces to include the entire gun with an empty magazine and the optic attached, complete gun. 35 ounces was fairly restrictive. A lot of people got up in arms about it, saying, hey, this is, you know, you're just creating this for the plastic guns. What about us guys that like metal guns, like the CZs and things like that? So now they've opened it up to 45 ounces. So an extra 10 ounces of weight, which allows a lot of guns to compete. Most anything you would want to use is probably going to be legal, but check that out. I don't know exactly how heavy those metal guns are, so check that out. And then a big bonus, the one I do like quite a lot, is the final ruling here. It requires, shooting in carry optics requires that your gun has an optic. So as a A-class, B-class shooter in general, with a very low score so far in carry optics, I would easily be shown up by the local grandmaster if he just wanted to declare carry optics but shoot his regular old iron-sighted production gun. So they've said, you know, do not make a mockery of our carry optics division. You have to have an optic on your gun to play. So the good thing about that is not just that, you know, you're going to get a whole bunch of guys at nationals and then the guy that wins is just shooting his production gun, like Ben Steger, right, shows up and just kills everybody anyway. No, not that. The good thing is that, in my opinion, allows USPSA now to play with magazine capacities, because like I said a long time ago, it'd be great if we could have a higher mag cap, but that might erode into the participation in production division. for guys that say, let's say they made it 15 rounds, or let's say they did what I was initially saying, which was, let's make it full capacity flush fit magazines, which, you know, whatever. Let's just say it was just a blanket 15 rounds across the board. Well, what if 50% of your production guys go, you know, I'd rather just shoot 15 round mags with my production gun with iron sights. I'll just go sign up for carry optics even though I don't have an optic, just so I can have 15 rounds per mag. So now that they've required an optic, that will allow them in the future to adjust the magazine capacity if they choose to in carry optics without affecting production divisions. So that's a really good thing. This is still a provisional division. So in theory, it could go away at any time. In theory, they could just decide, you know what, we don't like it, there's not enough participation, whatever it is, we're just going to kill it, it's not going to become a real division. In which case, guys like me, with a gun like this, are kind of screwed in some ways because we've spent some money to build up these guns, and that would go away. That's very unlikely. It's very unlikely. I'm seeing and I'm hearing more and more interest, more and more participation. However, I think there is still quite a lot of people that are going to wait until it's official before they spend any money on a gun for this division. But anyway, it is still provisional, and it will remain so until the next meeting in January 2017, when the USPSA Board of Directors decides what they're going to do. Is it time to make it real, or is it time to make some more tweaks to the rules and then do some more trials? I think so what we have right now for rules is going to stay until January 2017 in this provisional division. One thing that I think they should allow is a threaded barrel of factory length plus the threads, which adds about a ½ an inch, or in my case I measured my barrel and it's 5/8 of an inch. So something like that, a standard threaded extension should be allowed, just because, again, a lot of the tactical crowd out there is that's what they've already got, and let's let them play with it. I personally like my factory Glock barrel just fine, and I wouldn't be using my threaded barrel. If it was allowed, I still wouldn't do it. But I do like the Glock barrel. Let's talk about gear again a little bit here. I brought my belt today just to show you a couple things. You've seen it many times. It's a belt I've been using for 14 years almost. The holster is made for a Glock 35, so it's very long. As you can see, it's much longer than the gun. But one thing I wanted to talk about was just very briefly, equipment and not putting up with crappy equipment. I was, for a long time, dealing with some issues with my mag pouches and magazine compatibility. These are, you see this triple mag pouch here. It is really a quadruple mag pouch. There would be another one outboard here. It's called the Belt Feed. It's from CompTac, and it's really, I do like it a lot. I think a lot of people think that with the magazines, some of them inboard, some of them outboard, would be confusing as to where you're grabbing. I don't know. At my skill level, it just seems pretty natural. I reach for a mag and it's there every time. It's not a big deal. But I took this one off because the outboard mag is more than 2 inches from the inside of the inner belt. So I took that one off. And I'm not saying there's anything crappy about these mag pouches. These are CR Speeds I have back here. The one thing that it was a compatibility issue I had was with a magazine that for some reason the tube was a little thicker than others. I had no idea why, but it was, no matter how loose I set these screws, it was just too tight to get in and out of this mag pouch, and too tight to get in and out of this mag pouch, but it fit this one just fine. And so it was just one magazine and it was just one mag pouch, that it had to be that way. So I painted a little red dot on the insert there, the sub floor plate, if you will, inside the mag base pad. Little red dot saying, hey, that's the one that has to go in this pouch. And it's just ridiculous. You should not put up with crappy gear. So I did a couple of different things. First of all, from the factory, these spacers were like a black rubber tubing. So I had some leftover clear tubing from a project, I don't know, whatever, and I decided I'll just cut that up into a little bit longer lengths so that when I crank down on these screws, the screws are tight, but yet the mag pouches are opened up a little bit more. So the mags, all my mags go in and out very easily now for any mag pouch. I've loosened up the mags, but yet the screws are tight. So that's important. That's a very important distinction. With the original factory black rubber spacers, I would get to a point where the screws were so loose, the mags were still tight, but then the screws would fall out. So that's a bad deal. So that's very easily repaired with this clear tubing for the spacers on those mag pouches. The other thing I did was the offending tube. I went ahead and it was a full size Glock 22 size, 15 round, 40 cal Glock mag. I said, why don't I just swap it with one of my limited mags? So I just swapped the tube out. So this is the same base pad and the same subfloor plate there, the same follower, the same spring, just a different tube. And even before I fixed my mag pouches, just by changing that tube, now I can fit that in any one of them. So that little red dot doesn't matter anymore. It's just there forever until I sand it off, I guess. But that was just a quick little, you know, don't put up with crappy gear, fix your gear, buy good gear. If you're frugal like me, there's ways to take old gear and make it work for you. So that's a little quick lesson on that, a little quick comment on that topic. So now we're going to run through some match footage. So like I say, it's March 2016. Shot a couple matches already. One was just this week, one was 2 weeks before that, and I won both matches. And we'll take a look at video from that. One was from the Paul Bunyan range, and there was only 2 carry optics shooters at this match. So, and I won. So we're going to go through a few of the videos, just a few stages, just because they're interesting. They're good looking stages, and you can see some of my match performance, some of my improvement, even though I haven't really practiced at all, because I don't do that. I just do this for fun. But I have improved a little bit, and I been having a good time lately and looking forward to a couple more matches in the next couple of weeks. But let's go ahead and take a look at the first stage I have for you.
All right, so just touching the X's, right?
Touching the
That's all it says?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you ready? Stand by. If you're finished, unload, so clear, hammer down, holster.
All right, so you saw that stage, hands on the X's. You could start on either side of the stage, and the gun was unloaded and holstered, and all of your magazines were stationed on the railing of that wobbly bridge that we have there at this range. And the stage description said that you cannot put your mags in your mag pouches at any time. They have to come from that bridge rail, but you could carry them in your hand. So you see, the first thing I did was load the gun and then grab an extra mag and then go to shoot 2 targets plus a steel, which took me a couple extra hits because that was a real hard lean around there, and I'm shooting one-handed while I'm holding the other mag in my weak hand. And then I could dump the mag and go straight to the second position. And then the third position, actually, you see I had a light strike, and the gun just went click, and you see me just kind of barely cycle the gun so I can restrike that same cartridge. And for whatever reason, I don't know the reason, but I'm using a 4.5 pound striker spring. I have trouble with Winchester primers still, and Winchester should be good to go for everything, but this gun, and actually my other limited gun as well, I've got some issues with light strikes on Winchester, so I'm just sticking with Federals from now on. But that was one light strike there. You saw I missed one of the steel, so I wound up firing all 11 rounds. The gun went dry, and so I reloaded the gun and then grabbed another mag to carry in my hand so I could finish out the last 2 positions there. Other than that, I don't know, interesting stage. It was fun stage. It was a little bit of a slow stage because of the hard leans and the missed shots and the interesting rule or procedure that they laid out there for your magazine placement. But anyway, it was fun. Let's do 2 more stages from that match. Here's the second one.
You're ready. Stand by. If clear, hammer down, holster.
So that stage, I don't know, went pretty well. A couple of targets, you can't really tell because the targets are bagged because it was raining. But a couple of targets were stacked, you know, directly, vertically, one down front, one up above it. And so that's why it looked like I was shooting 4 rounds on one target. It was actually 2 targets stacked up like that. So fired, I don't know, I think it was 8 rounds or something, and then got into a second shooting position so I could see there was 3 targets downrange behind some barrels, and I shot the middle one because I couldn't see it from the middle position, and then reload with a fresh mag, fire 8 rounds, reload with a fresh mag, fire 8 more rounds. As I recall, I had 1 miss on that because I put 3 rounds on the lower target and only 1 round on the upper target where it was intended to be 2 and 2. So I actually had a miss over on the far right target, if I remember rightly. Now the final stage I'm going to show you was a fun one, and I'm going to give you a little talk about why I won the match.
You're ready. Stand by.
I love that kind of stage. That's just, you know, a lot of fast moving, a lot of fast shooting, somewhat up close, but then again, some accuracy is required. The dot on the gun really helps with that. I got a little excited on the plate rack, got a little bit ahead of myself there, had to come back and make up a couple shots. And sorry that, you know, the plate rack wasn't totally visible because my camera was like right at the level of the top of the port, but you saw most of it. So one reason that I really dominated that match was that my other carry optics competitor followed a different strategy and shot the first target and then turned to shoot the 2 targets that I shot, my 4th and 5th targets that were off to the right. So he shot the first target and then those 2, and then forgot about the window, the 2 targets in the window. So bypassed 2 targets, did not shoot at them, so that's 2 10-point penalties for not shooting at them, plus 4 misses, plus you could say there's also points that he could have earned that he didn't earn. And so, and actually, I just remembered, the funny thing is that was Travis Tomasi's dad. So if you guys know Travis, I was ROing and his dad, and he passed by those targets, and I'm telling everybody else, stay back, because if he remembers, he's going to come running back to pick those shots up. So I'm telling everybody, all the scoring people, just stay back, because, you know, he ran past some targets. He made it all the way in. He didn't realize that he forgot them. I gave him the unload, show clear, range clear, and then said, you know, I was hoping to beat you today, but not like that. He was like, what do you mean? I'm like, oh, you ran right past 2 targets. So, you know, he beat himself that day. So anyway, I was first place out of 2 on that match. Now I'm going to run you by a match that we just shot at Renton Fish and Game Club, Rick's favorite range where they run IDPA, and talk about some of these stages. Now there was 5 carry optics shooters in this match. So here was stage 7.
Are you ready? Stand by.
All right, so that stage, for one thing, if you can't tell, there's kind of a roaming 180 on that stage. So we kind of started shooting kind of right on the 180 at the targets that you first see, and then when you make a right turn to the left, then you're facing more downrange, but then there's some more targets even further over that way. So the bay kind of curls around, and so the 180 line kind of moves around there with it. But anyway, so if it looked kind of funny, that was why. One thing to note was, if you didn't notice right away, is the targets kind of got progressively harder with more and more hardcover on them. First it was wide open, and the hardcover was on the one side, then some hardcover on the other side, and then hardcover right up, you know, both sides, so you only had the very center stripe to shoot at, and then it was essentially almost headshots at the end there. And there was 3 targets, 3 targets, 3 targets, 1 target, 3 targets, and 3 targets. So when you're shooting 10 rounders, that's a lot of reloading that you would have to do if you had 1 magazine for each array. So I decided to do what you saw, which was to go ahead and fire 10 rounds and do somewhat of a standing reload. I was kind of barely moving forward while making my reload, and then 10 more shots, and then 6 shots, and then what was supposed to be 6 shots. I had a couple of makeups on the head shots over there in the very end, because I was kind of leaning awkward out of the box, and sometimes you pull the trigger and you think, you know, I don't think that was perfectly aimed shot. I'm gonna make that one up. So fired 2, 4, 6 and gave him an extra before wrapping it up. So that was our first stage of the day, and that was stage 7, like I said. Now I'm going to skip ahead and show you stage 2.
Are you ready? Stand by.
Okay, so that was stage 2, like I said. And by the way, the first stage I just showed you from Renton, I won that stage. I won this stage. There was a total of 11 shots and then 10 shots. So it was like a perfect 2 magazines if you could do it that way. And I wasn't even really thinking about doing it that way, but I saw another shooter attempt it, and he did fairly well. And I said, you know, I mean, with the swinger there, if I feel pretty good about my 2 shots, I'm just going to leave it at 2 shots, not make up any insurance shots on that, and just go for it. So that's what I did. Hit the activator. There's plenty of time to shoot those other 2 targets. By that time, the swinger had made 1 full pass and was coming back around. I shot it, I think, when it came down and when it came back up. I made my hits. I don't remember what the hits were, but then, you know, finished out the 11 rounds in the mag on the 2 targets on the left, reloaded, ran up for 5 close shots on some somewhat difficult targets, like getting up over a barrel. They were down low, hard cover. But the other reason I was shooting very slowly was that, like, the very first shot I took up there, I don't know, for whatever reason, something came back and hit me in the face. It was like not an object, but more like splatter or spray or something. So I don't know if it was gunpowder coming out of the gun, that, like, if the gun unlocked early, or if it was something that was on the barrels that kind of, because of the concussion, kind of kicked up in the air and came back at me. I don't know what it was, but something kind of hit me in the face around my eyes, and I was kind of assessing myself while I was finishing the shooting, like, am I okay? just because I got particles kind of back in my eyes a little bit, or very near my eyes, not in my eyes, but very near my eyes. So that's why I shot somewhat slowly there. But a lot of alphas on that one. I think maybe I only had one Charlie on the whole stage, but I don't have the scores in front of me. But I won that stage as well. So pretty fun. Fun little short course, you know, or not a short course, because short course is like 8 rounds, but a medium course. It was good. A lot of fun. My next one I have for you actually is a classifier. I think it's ×2, so we'll check that out.
Are you ready? Stand by. Finish unloading shortly.
All right, so that was a classifier. It was from the left box, fire 2 each on the left array. From the right box, fire 2 each on the right array. There's no mandatory reloads. Gun starts loaded and holstered. You kind of see what it all was. My first array I think went rather well. Went okay. Ran over the other box. My first shot I didn't like, so I made it up. It was a Comstock course of fire, so it didn't cost me any penalties to take an extra shot. So I fired 3 total shots on the first target, and then fired on the second target and the third target. I had somewhat of a flinch or hesitation there and caught myself before firing off. So that slowed me down quite a bit. I wasn't real happy at the time, but according to some online sources predicting my score, should be about 70% in carry optics, which actually, for as little as, like I said, no practice, for as few matches as I've shot, is actually, I'm very happy with that. Let's just say that much. It's a solid B class score. I'm ranked as B class now in carry optics, even though my score is not up to snuff. But because I'm A elsewhere, I can't be anything less than B anywhere else. So needing more practice with the gun. But yeah, anyway, 70% is good enough for me, and I'm going to shoot another classifier match coming up soon to try and improve that. So now I'll have you take a look at a final stage I want to show you. I think this is stage 6.
Are you ready? Stand by. Holy flame.
All right, so you saw, for all of these, our producer's been ROing me, so you get to see a little look at him there on that last stage. So there's 2 shooting areas. On this one, you can start anywhere in the shooting area, but you're facing uprange, so you got to turn and then draw. And there's 10 shots from there, 3 on the side I started on, ran over to the left, fired 2 more. One was just a headshot, so I came into position. You couldn't, you could see it from my hat cam, but I came into position and shot the right target first, even though the left one appeared first, but it was a headshot only, I think, with a no shoot, if I remember right. So I said, you know, I want to blaze on the wide open target, and as I'm blazing on that one, I'm finding my dot to make sure I know where it's at as I take a more difficult shot as I'm backing out of that position. And then the little triangular shooting area further forward, there was a total of 7 targets there. And, you know, I mean, no matter how you do it, pretty much there's going to be, no matter how you do it, there's going to be a standing reload for a 10-round gun. So I just went into it. As soon as I stepped in the box, I'm looking right straight down range at the one, so I went ahead and fired on that, and I let my momentum carry me forward past 2 targets on my left, and shot the one furthest down range on the left, and then backed my way up to shoot the other 2, reload, and then finish out on the right with a couple of extra makeup shots, because again, going a little fast, sometimes I don't find the sight exactly the way I want, but so I throw a couple makeups. I think I won every stage that I showed you there. I won every stage except for one. There was an all-steel stage. I took 3rd on that one. So out of 5 shooters in carry optics, which is awesome. Again, Travis Tomasi's dad was at this match as well, along with another guy in my squad, which I've never met before. But it was a pleasure shooting with him. And 2 more guys that I don't know. But it's good to see carry optics catching on. It's a lot of fun. I like the guns. I like the optic. When you need that accuracy, it is there. It really helps, and it really helps me a lot with accuracy. So good time. So the second place guy on this match, I remember, was about 80 or 81% of my top, of course, 100% score winning the match. So anyway, I hope you guys are liking it. I hope you like carry optics. I hope you're shooting it. It is a lot of fun. I don't see any reason why USPSA would can the division. So if you're kind of on the fence, jump into it. You know, I mean, you got, you know, like I said, Grizz Precision, I've told you before, mounted my optic for me, cutting that down into the slide. And if you don't want to do that, you know, you got your Glock MOS, which, I don't know. I still think if I was going to do another one, I'd still do it this way. I don't know if I like the MOS system quite as much because of the adapter plates, raising the optic back up a little bit. Same goes for the M&P core. You know, if you're an M&P guy, go for that. There's tons of guns out there. Not tons, but there's more and more guns being offered from the factory that are optics ready. So it's good stuff. It's a lot of fun. You guys should check it out. And just in general, again, if you're not shooting competition, why not? Just jump into it. That's what we do this show for. It is so much fun. You've never had so much fun shooting if you've not shot competition. And if you think you're not ready, you're never going to be ready. You just got to do it. It's like an analogy that I've told people before. It's like you're saying, I'm getting ready to ride a motorcycle by riding a mountain bike. And yeah, sure, while it looks the same, it's got 2 wheels and a handlebar and a seat, it's not the same. There's no amount of mountain biking you can do that'll prepare you for riding a motorcycle. It's the same with shooting. You know, you go to a square range, you go to a public range, and you stand in one place and you fire 1 round per second because that's the rule they have maybe at your range. And you think, you know, I got to dial my accuracy down, I got to, whatever you think you're working on, it's apples and oranges. If you want to shoot competition and have this kind of fun that we're having, you just got to come out and do it. Find a friend, go to USPSA.org, go to IDPA.com. You'll, you know, put in your zip code. They'll tell you where the matches are near you. So thanks for watching. Hope this episode wasn't too terribly long this week, but I'm glad to be back, and I'll be bringing you more news on the carry optics front as we go forward this season. Thanks a lot. Thanks for watching, and see you next week.